In this hearing, it starts as standard defense speak, serious, scripted, safe. Then a congressman drops a warning that hits like a siren, and you can feel the room tighten. But the real tell comes next. The exchange suddenly swerves into, wait, just to be clear, territory, like someone is trying to stop tomorrow's headline in real time. And when the secretary answers, listen for the dodge. What gets emphasized, what gets avoided, and what needs clarifying fast. That pivot is the whole story.
Mr. Secretary, thank you for your written statement, and also thank you for your recognition of the importance of our nuclear deterrent, and specifically our investment in our modernization of our nuclear deterrent. We are behind, as you know, in the modernization of our nuclear stockpile. Your recognition of our investment in our triad and our command and control is incredibly important. Thank you also for your recognition of the importance of our future investment in missile defense and the importance that the Golden Dome will play. The Secretary General of NATO has recently made statements of his concern of Russia's future attempt to place an anti-satellite nuclear weapon into space. Specifically, he has said, we are aware of reports that Russia is examining the possibility of placing nuclear weapons in space. This is very worrying. Space is also very important for our deterrence and defense, just as important as land, sea, air, and cyberspace. In recent years, space has become increasingly clouded, dangerous, and unpredictable. We know that competition in space is fierce. I recently had the opportunity to speak to him. He was at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in my community as we were commemorating the 30th anniversary of the Peace Accords. His concern was that this is not getting worldwide enough of attention. We had General Saltzman recently in front of the committee. He has characterized that if Russia were to place an anti-satellite nuclear weapon into space, that would be day zero, that if that was put in space, that next day, that it would be irresponsible for us to count on space, that we would have to spend trillions of dollars and seek technology that we don't have to find solutions as an alternative to space, both commercially, for military, in really to redo what is really society today. As you know, it would affect both our nuclear deterrence, our efforts for missile defense, even our investments in Golden Dome. In this venue, obviously, we can't discuss all of the details of what we're doing, but I would ask if you would please confirm that this is a threat that is a priority to the Department of Defense, as it has been characterized by the Secretary General of NATO, and acknowledge that as it is a priority for us to prevent the deployment of nuclear weapons in space, and that it is a priority for us to work with our allies to uphold our commitment to the Outer Space Nuclear Treaty that prohibits the deployment of nuclear weapons in space. Sir.
Well, thank you for the question, sir. As you alluded to, there are a number of aspects to this question or answer that can't be discussed here, but I would underline our complete commitment to the space domain, to the hardening of the space domain, to prevention of escalations in the space domain, but most importantly, to the dominance of the space domain. I mean, that is, it is the future of how we see, it's the future of how we sense, it could be the future of how our adversaries fight and how we deal with that. So I think President Trump, yet again, was ahead of the curve when he created the Space Force in his first administration. People said we didn't need it. We are relying on it every single day now to ensure, alongside the Space Force and private enterprise, that we're delivering the capabilities we need that are resilient, that are redundant, that are capable of all aspects of all domain warfare, if necessary. And preventing adversaries from gaining an advantage is a huge part of how we look at space.
This threat is not classified. Russia's threat of deploying an an anti-satellite nuclear weapon in space is not classified. Obviously, this is a priority of the Department of Defense, and I just want your confirmation that this is a priority that you're tracking, and you too see that as a threat to the United States, and certainly to the United States and our space infrastructure, and certainly our whole national security infrastructure.
We track all potential escalations, yes, sir.
Okay. And lawyer here, I just want to help you out because people try to twist your words. You are not confirming in your testimony today that at the Pentagon there are plans for invading or taking by force Greenland, correct? That is not your testimony today.
All my testimony is that the Pentagon has plans for any number of contingencies.
It is not your testimony today that there are plans at the Pentagon for taking by force or invading Greenland, correct? Because I'm sure as hell hope that it is not your testimony.
We look forward to working with Greenland to ensure that it is secured from any potential threats.
Excellent. I yield back.
All right, let's break down what we just watched. A real scary national security warning, immediately followed by a please don't make a headline intervention on live television. Turner starts in full serious grown-ups mode. Nuclear deterrence, modernization, missile defense, Golden Dome, the stuff Washington loves to talk about because it sounds responsible and expensive. Then he pivots to the actual alarm. NATO leadership has been sounding the warning that Russia is exploring the idea of putting a nuclear anti-satellite weapon in orbit. Not a cyber attack, not a jamming incident, a nuclear device aimed at the infrastructure modern life quietly runs on. And here's what makes that warning hit. He doesn't frame it as sci-fi. He frames it as a lights-out scenario. If something like that goes up, the next day you can't just keep assuming space is dependable. You're talking about rebuilding alternatives to what satellites do, commercially and militarily, at a scale that turns into trillions. In other words, this isn't about a new gadget, it's about whether the nervous system of the modern world stays intact. Now listen to the Secretary's answer. First comes the standard, can't discuss all of that here. Sure, fine. But then he tells you the worldview in a single word, dominance. Not stability, not risk reduction, dominance. It's the kind of language that treats orbit like it's just another arena to win, rather than a place where one bad decision can make everyone lose. Then the hearing does what these hearings always do. It turns policy into branding. Instead of staying locked on, how do we prevent nukes in space, he slides into, Trump was ahead of the curve for creating the Space Force. And look, regardless of what you think about the Space Force, that pivot is the point. When the subject is existential risk, the instinct is still to stamp the moment with a political logo. After that, the exchange gets more concrete. The Secretary says the threat isn't classified, and he confirms they're tracking it as a real escalation risk. That's the kind of on-the-record validation Turner was angling for. Put it in the transcript so nobody can pretend later that it was just talk. But the most revealing part of the entire clip is the whiplash. Because right after the space nukes discussion, Turner abruptly shifts into lawyer here mode, basically warning the Secretary that people will twist his words, and then tries to lock down a totally different topic, Greenland. He pushes him to say, clearly, that he is not testifying the Pentagon has plans to invade or take Greenland by force. Think about how wild that is. We just heard a scenario that could rewrite the rules of modern society, and the next emergency becomes, please don't accidentally create an international incident in a soundbite. That's narrative triage. That's someone in the room realizing a sloppy sentence can travel faster than a satellite and doing damage control before the damage even happens. So the takeaway is ugly and simple. You watch two crises collide and notice who gets protected first. Not the public, not the allies, just the message. One is a legitimate, terrifying warning about escalation in space. The other is a political culture so reckless with its own rhetoric that members of Congress feel compelled to preempt headlines on camera. If the fix for your message is a lawyer jumping in mid-hearing to save you from yourself, that's not strength. That's dysfunction with a flag on it. Now tell me, what was more alarming, the warning itself, or how quickly this turned into PR containment?